I'll start with that and then we'll open up. Okay.
Do you mind if we just take 3 breaths together
Oh, sure. Yeah, that'd be
and
great.
connect? I
Yeah.
would love that.
Okay.
I think it will be so beautiful that we're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, so inhaling and exhaling. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3. Exhale.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget to breathe and I could easily get into like the sort of thing.
Getting it done.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we do something different than today and get to experience something different,
Yeah.
which is always nice. Okay, I feel really connected to you now.
Oh,
I feel
good.
like
Good.
I feel like we're getting to know each other.
Yeah. And I'm gonna leave this in if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So hi, welcome to Toussaint Warrior Trials. My name is Ade Toussaint Richardson, and this is a podcast where I interview guests about the struggles and things that they've overcome in life and the steps that they've taken to overcome these things. Today, is a little bit different. It's going to be a specific topic. I'm here with my guest, Amrita Ma Devi, who is a Ayurvedic nutritionist. And um, I asked her to come on because on a previous podcast, we were talking about how to deal with emotions. A lot of us struggle with difficult emotions, and the topic of nutrition came up, and neither I or the guests had any, experience or much information on how nutrition specifically can impact our well-being and our emotional well-being, our physical well-being and our emotional well-being. So I've been watching Amrita Ma Devi's videos on Instagram and YouTube, and I really like what the information that she's sharing, and and I thought she'd be a great guest to have on our podcast. So welcome, Amrita.
That's such a warm welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I thought I'd begin by reading your bio. Amrita Ma Devi is a trained Ayurvedic practitioner and embodiment coach, as well as a plant-based chef, author, and mama goddess to radiant children. She invites individuals to awaken optimal health, reimagine their bodies, reclaim their moon cycles, and embrace their most powerful selves at any stage of life and age. As the founding partner of Flow and Wakefulness, a nonprofit spiritual organization, she advocates for women-centered coaching and is dedicated to empowering women on a deeper level. Her role as a plant-based chef, author, she empowers readers with delicious, nourishing recipes to fuel their journeys. But Amrita Ma Devi's contributions extend beyond the kitchen. So I guess I'll start with what inspired you, or what got you into Ayurvedic nutrition in the first place?
Yeah, so thank you again for having me here. I think I'm really just taking a moment to connect with the fact that I am not of Indian origin, and that Ayurveda coming from the land of India is something that might seem a bit weird as a Westerner gal, a biracial Westerner gal, that I'd be talking about it. It's not something that I've grown up with. It's not something that I've learned from my grandmother or great grandmother. It's something that I have learned and practiced for over 2 decades. And so I feel that when you get this knowledge, it goes right into your bones. It's the wisdom of your mother's mother's mother. It's primordial. And once you kind of learn about the elements, the primordial elements, that's, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, you realize how connected we are to this planet that we live on, and that the nourishment from the food that we get, understanding that not our bodies don't have a very specific amount of those elements that's unique to each and every one of us. That knowledge, that wisdom is something that's innate. It's something that we all have. And so once you learn it, I've read it through books, I've read it through practicing, making the food myself, I've had teachers, and it then becomes like a second, or first way of knowing how to live, which we all have this kind of remembering. Once we start doing it, we start to remember.
Yeah. And you said we each have a specific amount of those elements as an individual. Are those what are known by the doshas? Is that
Absolutely? Yes.
okay? So
Yes.
for
So
uh,
the doshas are a combination of the two of the elements, and they're a way of categorizing like the three body types. So, we have those three body types in Western medicine. It's been known since, Greek times. So it's in the medical system that we have, mesomorphic, mesomorphic, and endomorphic body types. And so these are very similar to the Vata dosha, which is made of the air and ether element, then Pitta dosha, which is made of fire and water elements, and then Kapha dosha, which is made of the earth and water elements. And that just gives us a foundation, really. But as we peer and go a little bit deeper, there's also the three gunas. And if we're talking about, particularly about the emotions and mind, then the guna qualities are very helpful for us.
Yeah.
Because you've mentioned that, certain foods will impact on our emotions. And so we know that the foods have these qualities, the gunic qualities, and that's where we really get into the Ayurvedic diet and looking at how it impacts on the mind.
So how would one find their dosha? Because I'm a novice. I don't know much about Ayurvedic nutrition, and I could kind of guess what my dosha would be, but I don't like, is there a specific way that one could find that out?
Yes, there is. And you can certainly see a practitioner. They will help you. They will go through your history. The thing with these dosha quizzes is that some people get different results each time they do them because they're not answering the questions from the way that they've always known themselves to be. So as a growing up as a child and everything else, we are we're born with one dosha,
Mm.
okay, which we inherit from our mother and father. But as life and our lifestyle choices kind of take over and infuse with that, it changes and causes imbalances.
Okay.
And that usually when people answer the quiz, they're like, oh, what I'm currently experiencing.
Yeah.
And that's where you'll get like a mixed or not very clear answer about what your dosha is. So it's good to actually speak to an Ayurvedic practitioner to find out.
Yeah, that seems right because I'm always a little skeptical of the online. Whenever I answer questions online, I'm always answering like the middle one, like neutral, because I can't, it's I you tend to be sort of biased. Well, that's how I want to, I would like to, that's how I think of myself, but is it actually
Yeah.
the truth, you know?
Yeah, and that's another area. Are we seeing ourselves clearly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And by the way, what is your dosha?
I'm a balance of pitta
Hmm.
predominantly, but my vata is kind of close to that.
So before you knew what your dosha was, um, how did that change your eating habits and the way your nutrition was?
Very good question. I really like that. So, I mean, when I discovered that I was Pitta dosha, and I was eating a lot of spicy food,
Hmm.
West Indian food, typically you have lots of hot sauce
Yeah, yeah.
and chilies and things like that. And that is a no-no really for Pitta dosha, especially in certain months of the year, like summer,
Hmm.
where predominantly the environment is hot. You got
Yeah.
that heat. And so that will send you into a pitta imbalance, which means inflammation, bleeding, um, you know, like excessive irritability,
Hmm.
gut issues,
Hmm.
you know, loose stools. Like these are
Hmm.
just some of the things that come up for pitta dosha, rashes on your skin,
Hmm.
red eyes, burning, itching sensations. And so, just like taking out the spicy food, removing tomatoes and nightshades from your diet or reducing them.
Yeah.
Things like tahini, which is heating, the sesame seed paste, the honey is heating as well.
Yeah.
Um, swapping nuts for seeds. So sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds are much less heating than, say, cashew nuts, Brazil nuts, walnuts. And so just making those few tweaks, it can make a real big difference on your overall mood and well-being.
So when I hear you talk about the details in that, to be honest, like for me, I'm like, oh my God, it seems like so much like that I have to do. Um, and I guess that's the conundrum with a lot of people. We get so used to looking for what's known, what's the easiest thing, what's the simplest thing to do. Um, but yet we often complain about, our physical health, not having energy, like all these things, the inflammation, which I deal
Mm.
with at times. What would you say to someone that is beginning this journey? How can they sort of like kind of ease into changing? Because what you're talking about, it feels like a really big overhaul in how we eat, especially here in the West, where people are eating fast food, like,
Right.
just 90% of the things in the supermarket are poison, basically, or not
Yeah.
really shouldn't be eaten.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not an overnight, switch.
Yeah.
It's like, even when you're a meat eater, let's say, and you're going more plant-based vegetarian, you don't do it overnight.
Mhm.
There's a transition period, and that transition period is different for everyone, right? It could be 3 months, it could be 3 years, it could be 10 years for
Yeah.
someone. And so we have to have a lot of compassion. And I think that's where like my work is going, is that you realize a lot of the emotion behind food. There's a lot of attachment and addiction to certain foods because of the way that they make you feel.
Hmm.
And so my work is like, well, how can we improve our behaviors with food so that we're not addicted, so that we're not kind of stuck in certain patterns? Like,
Hmm.
some people go through life eating the same food as they ate as a child, and
Yeah.
you have a completely different body to what you did as a child. And so it's about relearning, what's good, what makes me feel good, even outside of eating a lot of the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about getting past the procrastination, the low self-worth, the
Yeah.
sadness, the
Yeah.
grief, the anxiety that we have, that food seems to be a comfort for,
Hmm.
and the habits and the patterns around food, certain food items, is also something that has to like loosen up. And that happens gradually. It's not something that can happen overnight. It's something that, takes a conscious effort. It takes, compassion, self-love, self-understanding, a deepening and a self-discovery to get to a place where we say, like, I'm doing this because I feel much better doing that. And I usually, people jump in with me for the 21-day cleanse. And in that
Hmm.
21-day cleanse, they get to feel what cutting out all of that food feels like in their body. And so
Yeah.
it's called the Vitality Cleanse, because at the end of it, they're like, whoa, I didn't know I could sleep this well. I didn't know my skin could feel this good. I didn't know I could feel this good. Okay, I want more of that. So then it's a longer journey, where we, of course, like go over habits,
Hmm.
repeating habits, and then it's like that 1% shift that we take each day towards making and creating habit change over a
Yeah.
long period of time.
Yeah. I like that 21-day cleanse idea. Is it something that you it, do every so often, or
We
how
do
does that
that
work?
twice a year. Yeah, it happens twice a year at from the end of summer to the
Hmm.
beginning of fall, and then again at the end of winter going into spring. And these just highlight, the season transition as our body transitions from extreme hot into the cooler months. Our body's going through, a rebalancing, a
Hmm.
recalibrating anyway. And so what we're doing is we're assisting the body to lighten and make digestion easier.
Mm.
And that allows for us to move into that next season, with less of that accumulation of dosha. And so
Yeah.
it gives us an easier time.
Yeah, I've noticed the that change in myself from season to season. The winter months, it seems that my digestive system is working at a slower rate. That's what it
Yeah.
feels like. I don't know how true that is, but it feels like things get stagnated and,
All you need to do is look at all the ancient celebrations and festivities.
Mm.
Like you have Ramadan, which is a
Hmm.
fasting, at the beginning of spring, at that transition, they're lightening their digestion.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not eating so much throughout the day. They're giving the accumulation over the winter time that time to burn off,
Mm.
and the same thing that happens with in the fall. There's always celebrations where there's some fasting happening, where there's like some restriction in the
Hmm.
diet. And so that's just a way that we have culturally, you know, used food as a sacred element of life. We know how precious it is. It nourishes every tissue in the body.
Yeah,
And really, when we make that, you know, mental connection with the body, that what I'm nourishing it with has an important impact on every element of my life, how my tissues repair themselves in the body,
yeah,
how I manage to, show up in the world, how my skin is. Our skin is a reflection of what's going on in the gut.
yeah, yeah. Well, you don't want to tell the the skin beauty commerce or corporations this stuff because they make a lot of money off of that.
Oh my goodness, don't they?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the reason why Ayurveda, I have a theory, is not that popular, like yoga really, really, really took off. But, Ayurveda is still kind of seemed as maybe a bit woo-woo, or, it's not accredited by this and that, is because the whole healthcare system would really, really be, not needed. It's a
Yeah.
disease preventative system of holistic healthcare. So can you
Yeah.
imagine if people knew how to just pick herbs or use their spices in their kitchens as pharmaceutical, remedies, how much less money that would be, in spending on these big farm companies. And that's, one of the reasons why we also as a family took that on, because we were traveling. We went to, like over 50 Airbnbs at one point, from South America to, North America, Europe, just a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
And I knew that I didn't want to use the pharmaceuticals. I didn't have a regular doctor
Hmm.
even. And so that I knew that taking care of my family in the most sustainable way was through our diet.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you prepare for like like the winter months, the cold seasons, the flu seasons, and like how do you help boost the immune system? Because I think we're at a time where there's all these new viruses coming around and people are very concerned about them. What are things that, especially if you have kids, they're going to school, if they're not homeschooled, they're going to school and they're picking up all of these things, going to daycare and getting flus and colds all the time. That's something that I deal with at my home is like, it seems like they go from one cold to the next one and their immune systems don't seem very strong. So what are things that a parent can do to boost themselves and their kids' immune system?
Yeah, so there's a few things there that can really help. And it's not one specific food per
Hmm.
se. It's more about reducing the toxic load on the body.
Mm.
So, um, the main thing is like eating at the right times, avoiding snacking on foods, making sure that your child's eating the right foods for their constitution. So, like an example, of that would be if you have children are in a kapha phase,
Hmm.
season of dosha, predominantly when they're growing. And that means that they, accumulate a lot of mucus
Yeah.
quite easily. So you want to use a kapha reducing diet, which means, lots of fresh foods and not so much cold, heavy foods. And we talked about the gunas earlier. So I'm trying to make this as simple and easy
Yeah.
for you to understand and not get too lost in the jargon. But food combining is something that we can easily do. And that means making sure that, yogurt isn't combined with fruit,
Mm.
which is something that I think happens a lot
Oh,
in most
yeah.
people's
Yeah.
houses, is that they put it's like everything all in the same bowl.
It's already
But
mixed in it
yeah, but
at the bottom.
that's setting the digestion up for confusion, because the enzymes that your body needs to digest fruits is completely different from what it needs to digest sour yogurt. So you make sure that you have those at separate times, at least like half an hour
Yeah.
between. So that's one big thing that I see can really help. Starting your day with warm water, maybe a drop of lemon or lime juice,
Hmm.
instantly gets the digestion going, clears and detoxifies the gut, and all that mucus that's in your gut gets flushed away. And that's something, both adults and children can do together. And so the food combining is a really big one. We don't want to create excess mucus in the digestive tract. So like things like heavy beans with cheese
Mm.
doesn't combine well and creates that heaviness in the gut. Any meat with dairy products. It's not as complex as some of the microbiotic stuff, but it's I think that's very simple and explained kind of fairly well, that you can understand that, it's making sure that you have the right foods combined together. I
Yeah.
was trying to think of another example and
Uh,
my mind's gone blank. Um,
Well,
yeah.
it's a good point, the incompatible food combinations. I mean, it makes sense that the brain is sending signals to digest to a certain type of food. And then when you eat another one at the same time that's, not compatible, then it's kind of like confusing things. And it's, I can see how that can, kind of aggravate the body. Is there a list or anything that
Yes,
people
you
can?
could definitely look at food combining,
Hmm.
Ayurvedic food combining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's things on there like, cucumber and water, or like lemon and tomato and cucumber. Some things that you might be like, really? Okay, is that something that really messes with the digestive enzyme? But there's a lot of also really solid, things that you can take away from looking at a list like that.
Okay. Um, so I think let's go into a little bit about into the nutrition with how it affects emotions or how it can support. Um, like when we started the podcast, we started with this breathing exercise. And I have kind of my nervous system. I always have like a low grade sort of anxiety, you know.
Mhm.
My dad has it too. He's gone through a lot of trauma in his life and my family in general. And I always have this, and kind of this thing of, and I think a lot of us do, of like, we got to get to the next, we got to, we got to get to this or that, or, and in terms of eating mindfully, I'm usually not slowing down and thinking about, I'm usually going to what, seeking something, a sort of comfort, seeking comfort in the known. Not necessarily that it's extremely unhealthy, but I'm not going outside of, the sort of what I know, those parameters. And I'm not really thinking about, how it's affecting my emotional well-being. Like, for example, right before the podcast, I had a large cup of coffee. So, like, that's just like, oh, I'm awake, I'm a little tired. My go-to is, okay, pour the coffee in the French press and drink that, and then, wipe away the tired feeling. Like, that's just what my mind is saying. And then I'm like, oh, okay, why am I so anxious?
And the funny thing is that I think you've put the two together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That the coffee is wiring you for this anxiety, this low grade anxiety throughout the day.
yeah,
We would
exactly.
still do it, right?
Exactly. The thought of letting it
The-
go is,
yeah,
yeah,
that's the like just going on this overriding this common sense, which
exactly.
we call
Yeah.
prajna parada, the crime against wisdom. We have this wisdom and yet we go against it
Mm,
again and again and again and again. I do it, you do it.
yeah.
There's moments where we lapse. So that's why being in a community where you're focused on those habits, where you have this awareness, so that
Hmm.
every time you come back to a new opportunity where you get to like express your and be in alignment with your values is really
Yeah.
important. And, just taking that 3 breaths before you sit down to eat. In our family, we have a prayer before we eat.
Hmm.
But it's all about just becoming really present, right? Really present with who we are, who we want to be, what we want to feel like, what we want to feel more of.
Yeah.
And the whole, Ayurvedic system is about creating more sattva. That's one of the gunas, the quality of light, calm, balance
Mm,
throughout our nervous system and our body.
yeah.
So, and the other two qualities, rajas, is the more passionate, the more active, more movement that we need to get through our days, to go after our dreams, our goals and
Hmm.
desires. And then the last one is tamas. Tamas is what we need before we go to bed. It's that dulling of the mind, the dullness that, I just want to Netflix and chill kind of
Yeah, yeah.
mode. Um, and so we don't want to be stuck in any one of those for too long, right?
Hmm.
Because if we're peaceful, calm, and content, we don't go after anything. We just sit on a mountain top and meditate all the time. But
Yeah.
that's not practical in everyone's life. I've met very few people in which that is practical.
Hmm.
So we need that the movement to activate and get us going. And at the same time, we don't want to be stuck in that because
Hmm.
then we are going to be imbalanced in other areas of our life. We're going to feel, constantly wired and tired
Hmm.
because we don't give ourselves the space to feel the more sattvic qualities. we don't give ourselves the space to, have downtime. It's all
Hmm.
just go, go, go. And then the same with, the tamasic, the dullness of mind, the dullness of our mood, that Netflix and chill, we can't have that all the time either.
Yeah.
It's just not how society is built, or um, there's a lot of like more of those kind of dull, suppressive, depressive kind of sensations in that mode if we stay there for too long.
Hmm. Yeah. So like in terms of for each one of those, what type of foods would
Mhm.
complement each one of those sort of stages?
Yeah, beautiful follow up. So, when we're talking about tamasic foods, they're those heavy foods, they're the
Hmm.
darling foods. Meat is right there at the top
Hmm.
of that list. Things like um, avocados are even on that list,
Mm.
mushrooms are on that list, because they all have that darling quality to them. Pumpkins are on that list. Um, and, obviously, when they're mixed into other vegetarian meals, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. I'm not saying don't eat them. It's all about balance and making sure that you're not eating too much of those. Then you've got canned foods
Hmm.
that are in that list, processed foods and frozen foods. And then in the Rajasic, we've got right up there, ding, 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 quality coffee, sodas, the stimulating foods, like you'll have the spicy foods in there, you'll have the fermented foods
Hmm.
in that group, and things like sour, peaches, plums,
Yeah.
those pickles, olives, things like that in there. And then in the more sattvic foods, you've got the sweet tasting foods, the sweet but very nourishing foods. So
Mm.
rice, dates, milk, ghee, coconut, raisins,
Yeah.
fresh fruit, predominantly fresh fruits, and vegetables, all the rest that I haven't mentioned before. They're the more sattvic foods. So if you're on a yogic diet, which is slightly different to an Ayurvedic diet, because an
Hmm.
Ayurvedic diet is not, um, a one size, kind of fits all. Some people can eat meat. Some people are advised for medical reasons to eat meat because they're too airy and ungrounded,
Yeah.
so they need something to ground them and give them that some of that tamasic quality so they can get to sleep.
Hmm.
you know, whereas a yogic diet is predominantly, rice, roots, and nuts and seeds,
Hmm.
and that would be like all those sattvic foods.
Yeah. Okay. So the like let's say someone it sounds like this taking on this new way of eating and how it could impact your emotional well-being. It
Mm,
sounds like is it a process like something that takes some time for your body to kind of acclimate to this new way? Like, for example, if I get triggered and oh my gosh, I'm feeling, I get into an argument with someone, or not even argument, I could get triggered by anything. And there's this
mm,
feeling from childhood that's
mm,
triggered, this feeling of feeling not good enough at the diaphragm, and it's squeezing, and I'm in this flight, fight, freeze response. It's not like I could pull up my Ayurvedic book and say, okay, I'm going to use it now and eat these things and help with that. is it something that if one starts this new way of eating, that when that trigger comes, are they more able to maybe create that space, and have that awareness of, what's going on, that part that's triggered, or how does this diet sort of influence that?
Yeah, so it's there's a couple of things there that I want to say. One of them is about, doing a cleanse and doing the hard things
Hmm.
allows you to, it ripples out into your life that you can do hard things like restrict yourself with certain foods.
Yeah.
That's a starting point, I would say to everyone, is like at least, go on a 1 day cleanse, go on a 3 day cleanse, a 10 day cleanse. Start by looking at your emotional triggers with certain foods.
Hmm.
And once you have that awareness piece there, you can understand it.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath. It's also all about consciousness, right? It's all about mindfulness.
Yeah.
If you can be mindful about something, then you can certainly work on it to change it, to transform it, to alchemize it into something else.
Hmm.
So that's always a good starting point, is to, like have an awareness about what's, what are the triggers, why are they happening? So
Yeah.
I think I have a downloadable, even in the 3 day cleanse, there's a journal piece. So you can get a free 3 day cleanse from my Instagram account. And there's a journal piece in there, and it mentions, some prompts around these type of questions. So that's a good way to really get started.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna do the 3-day cleanse
Yeah.
at some point, and I'll like share about it, my experience. I've never done a cleanse before. So,
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
um, yeah. So we're at 10 minutes. We got about 10 minutes to go in the podcast. I have to leave at 10. I wanted to go into a little bit of I don't know if it would be considered esoteric area of this, but for people who have gone through, let's say, uh, I don't know if you have to be into like meditation or not, like, but one thing that I've gone through, and I think other people have, and they haven't, they maybe didn't have the tools, especially in terms of nutrition, to support them with it. But people who have gone through like really big sort of energy shifts, could be called Kundalini, kind of feels like
Awakening.
a freight train
Mm.
rushing through the body from feet. I mean, that was my experience where
Mm.
it just like, and it had gone on for like a year, like not that intense, but there were moments that were intense. There were moments that, as it started to subside, there was a little bit of disappointment because it was like there's an addictive quality to it. Like, oh, where's that sort of, thing? But people who have, and I think some people that watch this may have gone through this experience. How can this diet support that when you're going through that sort of experience?
Yeah. So you might have experienced at that time some digestive slowing down, either sluggishness or speeding up, or maybe even strong cravings for certain things. And I know this because I work with a lot of people that come from my husband's community, flowing wakefulness, who go through Kundalini awakenings.
Mm.
And the cleanse for them is a way of resetting and recalibrating, rebalancing their bodies at this time when you have so much of that life force that prana going into, very subtle channels
Yeah.
in the body, in the sushumna, in the nadis. You want to allow for as much ease in that process, not for digestive process to happen,
Hmm.
and detoxification. If those subtle channels in the first place are clogged, if they have sediment in them of undigested emotions, undigested, food waste,
Mm.
then that's why the cleanse is there. That's why it's been used, timeless, in this timeless wisdom, as a way of resetting the body and allowing it to digest all of those impressions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good to hear, for anyone listening, because I did it the complete, like probably the complete wrong way. I stuck to my coffee in the morning and it just, I could, but my intuition was telling me to do things differently. But
Mm.
there is that kind of egoic sort of survival mechanism that is like bent on not straying away. That part that's afraid of uncertainty, that is not afraid of straying away from what is known. So it's like,
Mm.
oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And it's not, I'm not saying it's a conscious thing. I'm conscious of it now, but that was playing on, within me, just doing the
Yeah.
same things. And
Yeah, I think that's why, you outsource help, someone like myself,
yeah.
where they can help guide you into new terrains, because that is what's happening, is you're stepping into unknown, the
Hmm.
unknown version of yourself,
Mm.
and it's like, how committed are you for something new to bud through?
Hmm.
Or are you going to cling to the old patterns, the old behaviors that are not necessarily serving you because of that fear of the unknown?
Yeah. Yeah. So support, I think, would be really helpful. And can you talk to us about, before we close, what you're up to now? And if someone wants to work with you, how can they reach you? And, you know,
So I I'm actually created the Sacred Vitality Club as a way of helping people to, or just like serving people to get to that next level within themselves, in their bodies, through diet, lifestyle choices, meditations, yoga, so that they can like deepen and discover more of that sacredness, that sacred vitality, our life force energy
hmm.
within the body, and really harness that power for what it's meant to be, aligned to the cosmos, aligned to that cosmic energy that runs through all of us, that animates all of us. And that's this, yoga and Ayurveda, where they really cross paths, is that, we are this sacred vessel. And
Mm.
so to take care of that and to really know how to nurture and nourish it, it takes some relearning, right?
Yeah.
Away from what we're kind of conditioned as culture, what we've picked up. Um, and so there are some lovely, it ranges, it's a holistic practice.
Hmm.
Everything from, knowing which foods to nourish you, to also doing self-love meditations, so that you
Yeah.
have that self-worth to really create this change in you, which we all, struggle with. We have loved ones around us that are doing something completely different. And so it's all about bringing it back down to our values. And for that, we need to have that solid foundation of knowing who we are.
Yeah. And I saw on your website, are you geared to mostly working with women or do you work with men as well?
I do work with men, yes, as well as women. And I think that I love to work with women and I love to equally work with men. And the more I kind of like have been told to like niche it down to, certain aspects, and the more men came to me. So that was really, really, really interesting. But yeah, absolutely. These habits are ultimately how to be the best human, how to live the most longevity, the most vital, optimal life, and that goes across the board.
Okay. And if someone were to want to reach you, how could they contact you?
Yeah, so you can find me at ayurvedaanytime.com, and that's the same name for Instagram and the YouTube channel, where you'll find like daily recipes or motivation, inspiration to keep you on track with holistic living.
Well, thank you, Amrita Ma Devi. Thank you so much for joining us. I certainly got a lot out of it. And I am going to do the 3-day cleanse and I'll share about it. I'll share my experience. And, you know, these podcasts that I do are partly of a selfish reason because I want to, like, I'm very interested in changing my diet. It's been something I've been struggling with. I have the peanut M&Ms in the fridge. The other day, like and I shared with you, I think over Instagram that my body was feeling inflamed from, I think it was from exercise, but I also think it was from the peanut
Peanut M&Ms.
M&Ms. I was like, this is perfect for me because I think of myself as eating healthy, but not, like I think I eat healthy, then I watch your Instagram videos and I'm like, no, I'm not. Like everything you talk about in those videos makes sense. That's the thing. That's why in
Mm,
some ways it irritates me because I'm like, I'm always like, it's always in my face, like, because I know, that inner wisdom is like, that's what I need to be doing. And it's like, so
yeah.
I just need to take that step gradually and start working this. I don't know if I can do the coffee right away, but you know, th- um,
Well, you never know. You might surprise yourself.
yeah, yeah.
And you're welcome, and your guests, to have like a 30-minute introductory call with me, and we can just find out if that's something that would be a good fit for you right now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So thank you again, and thank you. If anyone wants to leave comments or um, on this video, it will be on YouTube. It's going to be on Spotify. I post clips on Instagram. You'll find us at Toussaint Warrior Trials. Also, always helps to like, comment, and share. That helps to push this, my content in the algorithm. I don't, the algorithm is always so confusing nowadays, but thank you again. Thanks, everyone.
Welcome.
Okay.